Italy's radical new government has caused plenty of consternation here in Brussels since it was elected. But is its bark worse than its bite? My guest this week is the Italian MEP Fabio Castaldo, who's also a vice president of the European Parliament. After urging Britain to stand up to the EU on Brexit, why did his government leave Theresa May in the lurch at last week's critical EU summit? Fabio Castaldo, welcome to Conflict Zone.
Thank you very much.
Let's talk Brexit, first of all. Along with other members of your coalition, you've been urging the British government to take a tough line with Brussels. And you specifically promised to help get Britons the Brexit they want. Why did you break that promise at Salzburg last week? Your government broke that promise?
Sorry, but I didn't ask them to be as tough as possible with Brussels. I just told them that the Italian government is ready to support them in a good negotiation and can satisfy everybody. Satisfy Brussels on one hand and satisfy also the need and the desire of the British government to get a good agreement.
You said provide all possible support in the Council and in all discussion forums to ensure a satisfactory deal for everyone and especially for the British government and British people. Yes. So your delegation at Salzburg stayed absolutely silent when all Theresa May's proposals were rejected out of hand. You said nothing, did nothing, said nothing.
No,
why?
We understood that in this moment there is a kind of blockade, and we can see, unfortunately, that the steps that we were waiting for an ordinate Brexit are not yet all here, and we think that the failure of the negotiations and the Brexit without any kind of legal framework and agreement would be a disaster, both for London, both for the EU, because we know very well that in any case, UK government and UK as a country will be a crucial partner for us, not just from the commercial point of view, but also for the security of the content. Let's not forget.
But this was a critical summit last week. This was critical milestone, and you said nothing. The 27, the report from the European Council said the 27 were in full agreement. So you didn't offer any help to Mrs. May whatsoever.
No, because we are still we do not want to break up the front of the negotiation, but at the same time, inside the front of the 27, we are playing the role of the mediator. We are playing the role that is trying to approach and to strengthen a bit the negotiations and to find a negotiation to find upon all a compromise solution.
But you've already said that the EU has a negative attitude to Britain full of suspicion and arrogance. This is Ignacio Correa.
This is not me.
One of your people.
Yes, but this is not me.
But this is the view of many people inside the Five Star Party. It's also the view of Matteo Salvini, your interior minister.
Yes, that does not belong to the Five Stars
coalition.
It's part of the coalition. That is not part of the Five Stars movement. And our attitude, I repeat once more, is to prevent any attempt to do any kind of punishment towards the UK government, because we can see.
And you don't think rejecting all Mrs. May's proposals was punishment?
Sorry, I do not understand why you are seeing an attitude of mediator as a negative issue, because basically you are telling me that if we are trying to play the role of the mediator, we are doing something negative.
You didn't mediate, you said nothing. When the chips were down at the Salzburg summit, you said nothing.
That's what you are saying, because you know very well that in the negotiations, there are official negotiation and there are backside negotiation. And in this case, we think that silent diplomacy can achieve better results than do a kind of war with press release and a kind of war with public statement. We want an excellent diplomatic solution, and diplomatic solution normally to be effective should be worked behind the scenes, not in front of the scenes.
But it's not happening, is it?
It's not happening yet. But
Mrs. May said the talks have reached an impasse. So much for your mediation. You've reached an impasse.
Sorry to say, but we have seen other impasses in the past during this very difficult negotiation, because it's the first time that Article 50 was activated, and we know very well that there is no tradition, no custom how to deal with such a negotiation, because it's the first case in history. So it's totally natural that in some moment of the negotiation we can find blockade and impasse. Our work behind the scenes, even in front when necessary, but upon all behind the scenes as government and here inside the European Parliament, is to trying to have a closer position in this tough moment, especially because...
Okay, but there doesn't seem so many signs of that happening. I want to talk, if I may, about your coalition, which is 4 months, some 4 months old now. It's a fragile coalition because during the election that brought you into power, you described the League, your coalition partners, as the real danger to Europe. If you believe that, how long can this coalition last? You're in coalition with the biggest danger, the real danger to Europe.
First of all, just tell me when I told that, because I don't remember.
No, you not personally, but your party campaigned on that.
Of course, everybody was in campaign, and I think that also in your country, in Germany, when there was when there were the election, I don't think that CDU would say that the Social Democratic Party was exactly the best party in Germany.
But this is an unworkable coalition because you disagree on fundamental issues, don't you? Like the migrants, for instance.
Let me say that this is your personal opinion, because we have a contract, and this contract was negotiating following the German model, and in this negotiation we put some common points in which we can agree, and we do not have to agree in all.
Well, let's look at the things you don't agree on.
May I answer? Sorry, because
you did give me an answer.
I'm trying, because you are stopping me. I would like to finish my explanation. In this contract of government, we put some common items. We didn't put anything about having exactly the same position on Europe. We didn't put anything about the partners we have to would like to have in Europe. So it does not mean that we have to agree in everything. What is important to stick to the program, stick to the contract of government we got, and to follow and turn into reality all the points we put in the contract.
Mr. Castaldo, you disagree on fundamentally the biggest issue facing Europe at the moment, which is the migrant issue. You disagree fundamentally with your coalition partners on that. Mr. Salvini wants the Orban route, the leader of Hungary. He wants the Orban route, no migrants, and you want to settle this with Europe. So there's a big gulf between your two parties on this. Big gulf.
No, because the action of the government in the last European summit, in all the discussion of the Council, was always to find and to implement what is our position. That means a mandatory preventive redistribution among the different countries. And we have asked that with the united position of the government in all the different forums. Maybe you are not so much informed about that, but this is the reality of the fact. Then I recognize that Matteo Salvini sometimes is expressing very tough and strong declaration, but is saying that on behalf of himself. The action of the government is sensibly different, and we always ask through the mouth of the only person that is really in charge of this, that means the Prime Minister, to implement this position, a common approach from all the EU to reform the Dublin system and to share the responsibility among the countries.
Let's look at how much you actually agree on the migrants policy. Take the issue of sending migrants back to Libya. Just this summer, Roberto Fico, president of the Chamber of Deputies, member of your party, spoke out about a case in which almost 350 people attempting to reach Italy were sent back to Libya. As Fico put it, Libya is not a safe landing point. Human rights are not guaranteed, so migrants can't be left there. Mr. Salvini says that's lies. Who's lying? Who's lying here?
May I answer? Yes. The point is very clear. I do not know if you have been in Libya. I have been in Libya.
Yes, I have been.
3 months ago, and I saw the situation of the ground. Of course, this is a very terrible situation because it depends on which part of the country we are. There are different levels of cognition of controls by the different militias and the different governments actually
Look at what the human rights groups are saying about the treatment of migrants who are sent back.
Of course.
And Mr. Salvini says that's lies.
And of course, in our opinion, and our position is very clear. Still nowadays, there are problems of human rights violation in Libya, and I would like to thank IOM and the other international organizations from UN for the excellent work they are doing on the ground with very difficult conditions. Basically because Libya, because of the action also of some European governments in the last years, was left in the hands of militias and was left in the hands of not official authorities. The point is...
Mr. Castaldo, let's be clear here. A lot of these migrants are being sent back to what Amnesty International called horrific abuse, including torture, forced labor, extortion, and unlawful killing at the hands of Libyan authorities, smugglers, and armed groups. You may sleep more easily in your bed at night because there are fewer migrants coming to your country, but this is the kind of treatment that they receive when you send them back to Libya.
Exactly.
Do you care or don't you?
Of course I care, but I would like to ask you if Mrs. Angela Merkel is caring when he sent back to Turkey after the legal agreement that was signed up.
But she's not here in the interview, so
yes, but I'm asking what is your
what
is your point of view of the legal agreement that was done between EU and Turkey, an agreement that is not respecting the EU legal basis.
I don't represent anyone. You represent a political party.
I'm telling you that in this moment we are seeing clearly that Europe is not able, all Europe, not my country, all Europe is not able to face the problem, because the position to have an agreement with Libya was not just about from the Italian government, it was backed by all the EU countries and all European Union as such.
You don't speak out against what human rights is one of your responsibilities as
sure.
a vice president. So why don't you bang the drum about the treatment that these people are getting at the hands of the Libyan authorities?
Because many times I denounced that also in the plenary, and I say we have to pretend respect from the Libyan authorities of the human rights. We have to do more to pretend.
It's not happening.
It's not happening. But it's not happening.
You can talk all you want, but it's not happening.
It's not happening. Even the improvement of the state of rule of law in Turkey after the agreement with that was pushed by Germany.
So these are lousy agreements, all of them.
Of course,
lousy agreements.
We are trying just to move the problem inside other countries to try to hide the problem inside the carpet, but the problem is still there.
What about the problem in Italy itself? You happy with the way migrants were kept for days on a boat in August, as the Interior Minister, Mr. Salvini, refused to let them disembark?
I consider that the terrible consequence of the fact that the EU does not want to solve the problem. For how many years the different Italian governments asked for a joint solution to reform the Dublin system? There is no
But what about his decision to keep it? Certain members of your party were very upset by this. Gilda Sportiello said the decision not to allow the rescue ship to disembark is not shared by me. It cannot belong to my movement.
Many of us, we express concerns and we say this is not the solution, but I can also understand that after
but who's to blame for it?
May I answer? That I can also understand that after many years of silence by our partners, of hypocrisy by Mr. Macron, that is blaming on us, but at the same time he militarized the border with Italy in Ventimiglia, militarized all the west border of Italy, and is trying, there are also massive reports from the human rights NGO about violation by the French authorities and the French police about the right of the migrants. Well, where is the answer, the European answer on that? This is unfortunately fueling from people the sense of insecurity.
Where's your answer on this? Where's your answer? To lock people up on a boat? To stop them disembarking?
This is not my answer. This is the answer of the Ministry of Interior that implement that.
And these are the people you brought into government. Let's remember, you won the election and you brought the League into government. So you share responsibility for what the League does as well.
And that's why we say that we want a European solution. But still nowadays, where is the attitude from our partners to solve the problem? We repeat, for example, let's change the mandate of the mission of the Sofia mission. Let's try to share again the harbors in the Mediterranean that are going to take all the responsibility. Or at least, let's say that all these migrants that will come in Italy, then they will be redistributed from the mission. Again, and no, 27 no. What Italy, why my country has to deal with 700,000 migrants all alone? This is the European solidarity we are looking for. This is the European values we are defending.
Let's look closer to home, Mr. Castaldo. How did you feel when your country's Interior Minister posted a slogan on his Facebook and Twitter accounts on the anniversary of Mussolini's birthday, a slogan that was almost exactly the same as the one used by the wartime fascist dictator? Only a few words changed. Salvini wrote, "So many enemies, so much honor." Mussolini's saying was, "Many enemies, much honor." How did you feel about that?
I didn't know about that, and if it happened, probably it has...
You haven't heard about it?
No.
You know nothing about this?
No.
There was huge coverage in your own papers as well as anywhere.
I didn't know about that, and sincerely, if he did such a kind of communication, this is not an appropriate one. He should not have done this, and I hope he will clarify that there is nothing to do with this fascist apology.
Vincenzo Spadafora from your party said, Under Secretary to the Prime Minister's office, he said he warned against using slogans that relate to dark times in Italian history. You agree with that?
I absolutely agree. Vincenzo Spadafora is a good friend of mine, and many times I support his battles and his position on defense of human rights and equal opportunities as Under Secretary General for Equal Opportunities in Italy. And of course, I think that all ministers of the government, of every single government, should be very careful on the communication they are using and to clarify that there is in any case any doubt about any possible misunderstanding about former slogan of exactly dark times.
Mr. Spadafora was speaking after Daisy Osako, a black discus thrower on Italy's athletics team, was hit by an egg in an apparent racist attack. She suffered an eye injury, and she said that racial attitudes in Italy had got worse. In the past, I've experienced insults, but now I see in this country, she said, a tension that unifies prejudice and frustrations, sometimes leading to extreme incidents. Is that the kind of country you want? Is that why you entered government?
Absolutely
an increase
not.
in racial tensions?
But maybe you're not informed about the fact that the authors of this aggression to these athletes, one of them, he was the child of a Democratic Party councillor. Maybe you didn't read enough our newspaper.
It doesn't matter. She's talking about
matters a lot.
She's talking about attitudes, unification of prejudice and frustrations in Italy.
And we don't want and I also denounced that, but then we discovered that those guys, one of them is son of one councillor, local councillor of the Democratic Party. So that means that we have to fight all together on this regard, and nobody can be just blamed by himself by this risk, because one person is educated in a family that is left-wing and is educated in a family in which one of the parents is actively participating to politics for one of the party that was accusing the government for that. So that means that it's a common risk.
This is not an isolated case, is it? This is not. We now know that your coalition partner...
But probably you didn't know about
We now know that your coalition partner, the League, has brought a defamation case against a politician called Cécile Kyenge.
Sure.
She's a member of the European Parliament who was Italy's first black government minister. She accused the League of racism. They deny the charge and are fighting back through courts. But whatever the legal merits of this case, she was deeply insulted, wasn't she? As a politician.
She's my colleague here in the European Parliament. I know her very well.
By members of the League, she was insulted.
I know her commitment here, and I have a huge respect for her work. And of course, sentences by the tribunals should be respected by everybody, as we always said, in every single case that is concerning every single politician from any single party. So we will wait for what justice will say, and we will pretend that the
Why don't you condemn the things some of the League politicians have said? Why don't you condemn?
Because we condemn
Roberto Calderoli, a League senator, said in 2013, when I see Ms. Kyenge, I am unable not to think about, although I don't say that it is, the appearance of an orangutan.
Unfortunately,
you think that's acceptable?
Unfortunately, for your remarks, we condemn that many times, and we said that we do not want to have anything to do with this kind of declaration. But maybe you're not informed about the press release that many times we did on this regard.
And these are the people you still wanted to have in your coalition.
I would like to remember that when we proposed to Matteo Renzi to form a government together, and we proposed to Matteo Renzi and the Democratic Party to have a government together, he said, no way, we don't want to negotiate. We said, we are ready to negotiate every single issue and a joint program for the government of next five years in Italy. And even if he was not Secretary General of his party anymore, he blocked every single possibility to negotiate. So tell me, what was the solution? To live in Italy without a government? To do not have any kind of government in power? To take the terrible issues we are facing, economical crisis, possible bank crisis, migrants issue, everything. What we have to do? We try to negotiate with all two possible partners. Okay,
let's look at something else your partners are doing. The League's Families Minister, Lorenzo Fontana, proposal to scrap the anti-fascist Mancino law, which was passed in 1993 to outlaw racist violence and hate speech.
And we defend this law, and we say that it's not going to happen because it's not on the program in the contract of this government, and that's why it will never happen, because it was not negotiated. We stick to the promises we kept, and we stick to the contract we negotiated. So this is not going to happen.
What makes this especially controversial is that the attempt to scrap the anti-fascist law is happening just at the same time as Mr. Salvini is being investigated under it. So is this what happens now in Italy? Ministers find laws inconvenient, so they seek to scrap the laws, yeah?
I'm sorry to say that, and I repeat once more, that this is not going to happen, because we are the main partner of this coalition, and we say that this issue is not in the contract of the government. And for this reason, this is not going to be supported, voted, or presented by Five Star Movement. That means there are no numbers in Parliament to vote such an abrogation of such a law. We are going to defend that, and if they are Lega Nord members are doing such a declaration, you should ask them to Lega Nord, because on behalf of Five Stars, I can repeat once more that this law is not going to be changed, because for us, anti-fascism is a value, and the defense of the values, of the resistance, and of those people who fight to free our country are a value.
The problem for you, though, is that the League's right-wing populism is raising them up in the opinion polls, where your Five Star Movement is falling back. Salvini's rhetoric is catching on, isn't it? The poll in August shows his handling of the migrant crisis had won over some 50% of your voters, according to a poll in La Repubblica.
Poll of La Repubblica, they are not the truth. Say very clearly that if you are...
You know that you're losing in the opinion polls.
No,
Five Star Movement is losing.
I would like to tell you
poll.
that according to all the polls, almost all the polls that were published in the last months, maybe we can have lost 1 point or 2, but the one who's collapsing is Mr. Berlusconi, Forza Italia, that had in the last election 13,
I'm only interested in your party.
13,
you only represent your party.
14% of the votes during the last election, and now it's around 6-7%. So almost all the new voters that are supporting Mr. Salvini action are coming from Forza Italia of Mr. Berlusconi.
And yet you're so worried about your image that you've taken to attacking the Italian media. Luigi Di Maio says some papers are polluting the political debate every day. I don't read Italian newspapers to be informed, he said, but only to understand how they want to attack us. Welcome to democracy, Mr. Castaldo. If you don't like the heat, why are you in government?
Sorry to say that, but here what was denounced, it was not the role of media, because we always fought for free medias and independency and the freedom of opinion. What we
the president had to remind you, didn't he? Even the president, Mattarella, had to remind you.
I would like to answer, if you allow me, without blocking me every 30 seconds when I'm expressing concept. Thank you very much. I would like to tell you that in this case about newspapers, what we are denouncing is the conflict of interest. And I would like to give us some examples. Everybody of us saw in the medias what happened about the collapse of the bridge in Genova, okay? When we denounced what happened, the fact that the maintenance was cut every single year for more than 10 years by the business company that is managing all this infrastructure, no newspaper was publishing the name of the main shareholders that are controlling this big business company.
This is a reason to try to take advertising, government advertising away from newspapers?
I would like to continue, go ahead, and saying that this big business company, this family, is financing many newspapers, is taking some action in these newspapers. So we didn't say that we want to close these newspapers. What we ask is that these newspapers should publish, and very clearly in the newspaper, who are the shareholders, who are the investors that are financing this newspaper, because everybody was, me, you, everybody else, when they are buying a newspaper, we should know if this newspaper should be influenced by the owners and their private interest, or they are doing exactly their job as publishers without any kind of influence.
Mr.
Would
Castaldo,
you like to know if
Mr.
this newspaper is
your
financed
president was concerned enough to remind your party that, as he put it, the unconditional freedom of the press is the cornerstone and fundamental element of democracy. Shocking that you need to be reminded of this.
No, I don't think. I think that what the president has said is totally in his rights, as his position, but we clarify that he has nothing to fear, because, again, we repeat, we would like to have published in the newspapers the name of the shareholders that are controlling these newspapers, because in Italy we didn't solve the issue of the conflict of interest, and this is a huge
Macron
problem.
Says there's a civil war in the European Union between the pro-EU liberals and the nationalist faction, which is Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, as he sees it. Who's going to win, and what side are you on?
Personally, I always say that Five Stars, and we always said Five Stars, that want to be the third way in this issue. We do not want to be with Macron and with the old...
You said you won't challenge the EU. Di Maio has said it.
Yeah, no, it said that if we are not going to be listened as a country, consider that we are an active contributor, we are paying much more than what we are getting, we were ready to raise the veto on the new budget of EU from 2020 to 2027. That is totally our right, because it's what the treaty is giving to us, because we need a unanimity approval. And second of all, I would like to clarify a very single issue. From one side, we have, let's say, the nationalistic and sovereign approach. From the other side, we have Mr. Macron approach, let's say, that ideologically is pro-European, but then from his concrete policy, day by day, we see that he's very nationalistic as well in the interest of his country, and he's trying to deny the reality of many problems.
Luigi Di Maio said you're not going to challenge the European Union.
Sorry, what does it mean challenge? Mr. Di Maio clarified,
he's your party leader.
He said that we are ready. If there will be no reform of the Dublin Treaty, if there will be no reform of Eurozone, then we are ready to even think about the possibility to use the veto on the next budget, and this is our prerogative, as Germany can do, as Austria can do, as Spain can do, just to be listened. And we will be the third way, just to finish, we will be the third way, and we will try to criticize and to propose actively reforms on Eurozone, on social Europe, on migration, not with Orban and not with Macron.
We've run out of time. Fabio Castaldo, thanks for being on Conflict Zone.
Thank you.
Thank you.